Were you ever like a full-on Miles guy, or?
You know, Miles was my least favorite.
Is that
starting
right? So
off,
that's
like,
all I ever say to you. Please do a Miles thing on this.
Man, you know, it took a long time for me to appreciate exactly what he was doing, because it just sounded like, oh, he's just playing like weird notes and like not really playing a whole lot at all. So I was like, me being at high school, he was like, no, play a whole bunch of cool stuff, and it's like that wasn't what Miles was about. And it
He did more of that earlier, but yeah.
Oh yeah, sure, earlier, but like what we know Miles for,
yeah,
it was just
kind
like
of all stuff,
playing cool, playing space, playing hip, and being like soulful. Like no matter what, even if it's not soul, just being soulful, whatever you play.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to like kind of come to terms with that. Like Freddie, like all the grades that we all just couldn't stand it.
Hi, I'm Norm. I was born and raised in Japan, and I'm half Japanese. When I was a kid, I took a couple strings off an old guitar, and that was the beginning of my career as a bass player. Two of my favorite things are music and sushi. Welcome to my home. I'm Norm Stockton, and this is Grooves and Sushi. Good gracious, what an absolute treat to play this song with this group of incredible musicians today, including drummer to the Ringo Starrs. Sorry, I was dying to use that one. The legendary Mr. Gregg Bissonette on drums. Trumpeter extraordinaire, Mr. Brandon Phillips. The freakishly talented keyboardist, Mr. Rob Renderer. Cello virtuoso, Mr. Erdis Maxelaku. The Da Vinci of guitar textures, Mr. Justin Hepner. And while we're at it, the Michelangelo of texture synth, Mr. Brian Willett. Cutting loose on material like today's is a musician's dream, but most of us are also dreaming of Chef Kevin's sushi creations. And yeah, it's just as good as it looks. In this episode, we'll be performing one of my favorites from the entire project. This bombastic tune is called Blizzard. As usual, I should mention that while some of us have worked together in the past, this lineup of musicians has never played together, and this song has never been performed before this taping.
Amazing piece. This is the fresh local tuna, totally untreated, just as good as it can get, and then this is the fattier part of it. So this is like the raw back part. It's got like a really rich taste, and then this one will have like a lighter, smoother texture. And then each of you should take one of these and just eat it as you want.
Wow, thank you.
Get down, dude. You want to just grab? Sure.
I'm a drummer that can't use chopsticks very well. I'm horrible. I'm really bad with chopsticks.
Confirmed.
You have a fork? Bad.
We're here to tell you. Here, let me help you. I'm using the safe end of it. Okay.
Did you live in Japan?
I
You
did.
did? Well, Steve Vai used to play in Zappa's band, so he's really great at transcribing. He transcribed the Black Page that Terry Bozzio did and sent it to Frank when he was 17, before he went to Berkeley. And Steve is just really into writing and transcribing. So I had a Sharpie and a white Remo head. I was writing, he's going, I got this one song that we're doing with Dave, and during my solo, pop, 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 and he's playing all these hits, and I start writing them out, and he goes, so you can write out...
You were writing on your snare drum
on the
head.
snare drum head with the black Sharpie, and he goes, you're my choice.
You were reading at a freakish level when you came in and did. But I played one on TV on Tea and the Typhoon.
When I went to Mexico and then came back in.
Yeah. We got to hear that story again.
So I'm driving down to the session, and I'm just tooling down the 5 or the 405 or whatever coming from LA.
805.
The 805.
Yeah.
And Norm, I go, so I'm almost there. He goes, oh, you got plenty of time. Don't worry, you're getting close. And I stop, and there's these dudes with guns, and the stop sign says Pare, P-A-R-E, and I said, I think I'm in Mexico. I go,
We were on the phone.
I go, am I in Mexico? And this guy goes, of course you are in Mexico. Where do you think you are? I'm like, okay. So I get in really easy, and I turn around, and there's a line like 3 miles to get out. And I'm in line for like an hour, and I'm running out of gas. And these guys are trying to sell me, little guitars and maracas
Chicle and stuff, yeah.
I go, no, I'm cool. So I finally get to the customs guy, and he goes, passport. I said, I don't have my passport. Why did you come to Mexico without a passport? And I said, I just figured I'm going to lay it out. My buddy Norm Stockton, we're doing an album, and it's in San Diego, but I didn't bring my passport because I just didn't realize I was on the 805, and I got here to. He goes, just go. So I got out.
There's a video clip that's assembled, and while he's telling that story, B-roll footage is flying in of what it looks like on the 805 heading into Mexico, and gigantic signs like "Last U.S. stop! Stop if you're not going to Mexico."
I didn't see any of those. I was talking to Norm Stockton, one of my heroes.
I started meeting a lot of people, and then I didn't realize there were so many connections involved in the Orange County music scene, especially the Orange County church music scene. Everybody knows everybody. You're like one step away from this band or that guy who plays for that person. Ended up working on some stuff that the bass player for OneRepublic was working on.
The current bass guy or the original bass guy? Or who?
Current, Brett.
Okay,
Yeah.
Brett.
I've known Brett even before that for years, but ended up started working with him on some music that he was recording for another artist, and ended up recording some stuff on OneRepublic songs way back in the day. And he just said hey, we don't have a keyboard player, would you want to play keys? I was like, sure. And that's kind of it.
When you first got with them, were they looking for a conventional keyboard player, or were you totally able to do exactly what you do?
I think Brett was looking for somebody that did what I did.
Only trumpet player that I've ever worked with who had a pedal board.
Oh,
and when we first So I was introduced to you through Bubby Lewis, right?
Right.
Yeah. So we first met up, and I started kind of talking a little bit about what this project was going to be and where it was sort of leaning, and I said, yeah, and there's some stuff that I'm looking for it to get kind of weird, you know? And then you, without hesitation, like, no, I have a pedal board. I can get just as weird as you want.
Man, yeah.
But how did that come about?
You know, man, I heard this. I was listening to this Roy Hargrove record from his group, the RH Factor, and I was like, trying to figure out how to reproduce some of that sound, and I was like, man, that's a really cool synth you have. Like, it sounds weird. It sounds almost horn-like, and come to find out, like maybe a year or so later, he had a pedal board for a lot of those albums. Like using envelope filters, synth, like all these kind of weird sounds.
What years was that?
I was listening to it back in like 2010.
Total innovator.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of been around. Like even Michael Brecker used pedals on some of his older stuff. Like, come to find out, but it just wasn't like a real big staple in the horn world, at least. So that's what made me get into it. I was like, I want to do some like cool stuff, like Roy. Like, what trumpet player doesn't want to play like Roy?
So what kind of stuff do you have?
A little bit of everything. Envelope filter, reverb, delay, pitch shifters, choruses, phasers, all in between. Yeah.
Mothership 2.
It's getting pretty weird.
So how did the Dave Lee Roth thing happen?
Another answer to prayer. You know, you think, wow, I don't want to be labeled as a big band jazz drummer. You know, you don't want to be labeled at any. So I want to get a rock gig. And I remember my prayer was, if I could just get a gig like Van Halen or Genesis or Journey. Well, you know, Alex Van Halen, whip out your license. He's the drummer in Van Halen, so you're not going to get that gig. Steve Smith was a drummer in Journey, and Phil Collins and Chester Thompson, they're in Genesis. So David Lee Roth left Van Halen and started another band, and thank you.
So how did you get connected with them, though?
I was playing with Vinnie Vincent. Do you know who that is?
Yeah.
Who is he?
He's a guitar player, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just testing you.
Yeah.
In what band?
Vinnie
You
Vincent.
don't really know Vinnie. Do you know Vinnie Vincent?
I do.
I'll give you a hint.
Kiss?
Kiss.
Oh, okay.
He was the guitar player in Kiss. So he auditioned me for his band, and he goes, we already got a guy, but you should think about being in Dave Roth's band. And I said, who's Dave
Roth.
He goes, David Lee Roth. I said, he's in Van Halen. No, he just quit. And he hired Billy Sheehan to play bass and Steve Vai to play guitar, and you should audition. So I auditioned and got the gig, you know, through the cattle call thing.
The material for this project could very easily be conveyed in a kind of a contemporary jazz, smooth jazz kind of way, and would be fine and safe, you know. But A, I like all sorts of different music, and B, I'd never really heard this kind of stuff done with textures more from pop or from rock kind of stuff, you know. And so it's been super fun to have guys like Brian and guys like you, Justin, where it's like you don't live in a jazz world necessarily, but you can function and be your voice in that context. And I love it. It's been super fun having you on this stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, well, to be able to sit in with all of you guys is a total different category of player for me, which has really been really fun for me.
So what's your kind of paradigm when you're coming into a situation like this as the guitar player, but you're the texture guy?
Yeah, I think some of it just has to do with permission and relationship, and this is the second time I've sat in with all you guys in this specific environment, so the relationship is more permissive. It's a little bit more of a playground than a proving ground for me, and I think that's what the relationship does. But for me, it's interesting finding where I belong in it, because I can lay down a texture and underneath that or over that can go so many other things. And it's kind of like, how do I either roll out the carpet for things to happen on top of, and when do I decide to pop out of the waterline for a little bit of articulated sound and noise, and then when do I go back down, and how far down do I go? How far am I rolling my tone knob off to make sure I can bury my sound and just sit in this totally other kind of like, you know, bottom left corner or bottom right corner space? What
Yeah.
on earth is this?
It is real sushi.
What's the deal?
Manna
So,
from heaven.
the head chef and the owner, they tell me, because like you go to one place and like California roll with
Kev.
salmon on top, $10. California roll with salmon on top, $16. So basically what happens
Do
is
more.
the sushi is different because they get fresh fish. This one gets a little more frozen fish. But rolls, every sushi chef, every restaurant discriminates. They're like, rolls get the frozen bad stuff.
Wow.
So that's what I'm saying. Like that tuna is really nice tuna. No place would put that on a roll.
My brother and my dad both said, okay, well, if you want to be a professional musician, you got to learn to play everything, you know. And actually, I liked outside jazz at that time, but I didn't like traditional jazz at that point. And they're like, no, you got to go back, you know, learn String of Pearls and all these old songs, you know. And so I took it seriously, and I did, and I'm so glad, you know. So even the stuff that I didn't like, I still got background in it.
What have you learned about music that you wish somebody had mentioned at North Texas State?
That the best thing about playing drums, that like when you pick up sticks, you know, you learn your rudiments, your paradiddles, your paradiddles, your flams. You learn the Elvin Jones groove. You learn the Afro-Cuban groove, the Steve Gadd, the Tony Williams. But the number one thing that I wish I would have learned, that somebody kind of would have told me, but it took many years to figure out, is you just, well, first of all, playing with a click. And second of all,
So that wasn't a thing at North Texas
oh
State?
man, there was no click. See, I'm gonna be 59
Okay.
next month. And
Yeah,
when I
yeah.
graduated from high school, it was 1977. So college for me, from 77 to 81, the only
There was-
clicks
yeah.
were in the movies in LA. Yuri Timeline for doing frame the picture. So clicks didn't really start happening until like 82, 83. The first drum machine was Steve Gadd on Hey 19, you know, when you hear Gadd playing, overdubbing some cymbals. But nobody ever worried about playing with a click. So I took a gig in Orange County where I said, could I possibly, I have a little Dr. Beat, could I possibly, I got these air traffic controller, like shooting guns
Yeah.
headphones, and I put these Walkman inside. Could I play each song with a click? And you guys won't have it, but we'll play every song at the record tempo. And the guy goes, yeah, our other drummer always plays things way out of tempo, so that'd be great. So for 2 years, I just played with a click on every song from 8 till 2 in the morning, and just played and got used to playing with a click. So I wish that they would have told us more about that, how to play in, you know, in time,
Yeah.
and how to play grooves that make people want to dance instead of just trying to play the beats and not think about why you're playing the beats.
There's a safe way to do music and there's a dangerous way to do music, right? And the live without a net thing can be hairy because you could play something that doesn't work. But the trade-off is that you're never going to find the killer stuff unless you venture into the deep waters, right? And I suppose a classical person may disagree with that. It's like, no, you can always keep playing this piece better until you can really nail it. But fundamentally, it's like we landed some places this afternoon where there's no planning that could have achieved that stuff, right? It's literally musicians listening and going, oh, you're gonna do, I'm gonna do this. Oh, you're gonna, oh, it's like all of us are sort of it's evolving and morphing as it goes,
And you were talking about that interaction. There were so many times today where I play something and Gregg, not necessarily mimicking what I'm doing, but just responding in some way that makes musical sense. And I was like, whoa, I mean, he's a musical cat,
Towards the end of the day, tracking, the question was, can I move beyond what the ink says and put a little bit of myself into this?
Yeah, and for sure I immediately said no, because it's like...
The answer's no. Leave, those sorts of responses.
Good call, by the way.
But the cool part was, like, we had that pass at that song, and it was incredible. Because there is this other thing, and it pushes everybody else, not to mention he shreds. So when he takes the risk, it's also really good. So it's not just trying to shred without the preparation. You've been working hard, now let's let it play on the playground.
Well, that's kind of the thing with Brandon, is his musical sensibilities.
I'm hanging on for dear life.
Dude, you're a very humble guy, but I know better.
My brother grew up doing Gaither vocal band and Yanni and all of these other things that were a part of his world, church music, vocal, choral arrangements, all sorts of things. And I'm on the other side playing, Nirvana and Led Zeppelin and then into punk rock stuff. We always shared music, and I think every genre of music has always been special to us. It's music that's special, and its expression, whatever you wrap it in, and whatever it's made out of, is in some ways secondary. It just brings the not to sound too cliche, but it just brings beauty through a different channel, a different way.
Totally.
And I would say every form of music. I mean, when I was 17, I went and saw Yanni at what was called the Arrowhead Pond of Anaheim, and I sat there. We watched the entire concert. The guy behind me hit me on the shoulder, and he's like, my wife told me we were going to see WWF, and I was like, I paid for these tickets. This is awesome, I just love arrangement. I love musical styles. So that's a huge piece of it for me. I'm not good at all styles, but I definitely do appreciate it.
We're getting more well versed in like kind of the exploratory jazz.
Yeah, you guys are kicking my butt, that's for sure. I'm learning how to fit into it, and I'm also adjusting some of how I use what I know.
Okay, so our friend Dave Owens,
Monster drummer. He's played on both Pondering the Sushi and Tea and the Typhoon.
fantastic drummer and really good all-around musician, really knows music and everything. But he tells this story, but early on in his career, he got this call to do a Vietnamese session. And so he goes in, and the guy's telling him what to play, and he says, okay, and so he's playing. And the producer goes, okay, one more time, but more cymbal. He said, oh, okay, I thought I was playing a lot of cymbals, but I'll play some more cymbals. You know, no, more cymbal. Okay. No, more cymbal. Okay. So,
I don't know how many more I can do.
and it's like it's not going well, you know. And later he's pulling out of the driveway. He's leaving the session. It's like one of the worst gigs of his life, right? And he's like, I just don't understand. And then he goes, oh, he meant more simple.